Nowadays, the usual marketing ploy to sell you a romance film is to explicitly announce at the beginning that, in case you haven't guessed, this isn't a love story. Many films that use this non-love story hook turns out to be, in the end, a love story. However, Alice Wu's 2020 film, The Half of It, seems to be an exception. We would like to believe that love is only a subtopic that the film tackles, even though several quotations about love are featured throughout the film to signal the beginning and end of an act. Storywise, we are presented the journey of a young woman towards her self-discovery and the process of collecting enough courage to eventually leave the place she seems to have been trapped into. In fact, love is only half of the film's primary motive, while the other being the motive of leaving. The half of it subtly implied to us that love requires a lot of leaving. Get a bowl of your favorite chips as we dive deep into your favorite flick here at Flick and Chips. Today, we are going to talk about the half of it and how love is about leaving. The main arc of the film starts towards Paul Munsky's desire to write and leave a love letter on Astor Flores' locker. However, when confronted about his feelings towards Astor, Paul is left without words. His speechlessness resulted in his correspondence with our main protagonist, Ellie Chu, an intelligent, reserved, philosophy-loving Chinese student who takes essay writing rackets from her high school colleagues. The act of leaving a love letter means leaving a piece of your consciousness out there, waiting to be read by someone you intended it to. Yet, there is one problem with the handwritten letter. You cannot commence a Q&A with it unless you write back, which Astor Flores did, by the way. That is why at first, Ellie was hesitant in accepting Paul's writing commission.
It'd be wrong. A letter is personal. It's supposed to be authentic.
As she struggled to explain why she can't be Paul being authentic, Paul vouched, "I can pay more for authentic." With the threat of not paying the electricity bill, Ellie accepted Paul's payment for the authentic. For us, this simple scene raised an important point about our ability to love and express ourselves. We are living in the time of greeting cards, BuzzFeed quizzes, personality tests, and astrology geeks, which urges us to ask, does it leave us enough room to explore our authenticity? As the film tackled and dared us to ask when we authentically express ourselves, isn't it ironic that Paul, who usually expresses himself through primitive grunts, is determined to show his love for Astor? And Ellie, even though great with words, is unable to express her true self in terms of her sexuality. Not only that, even though Ellie knows exactly what to say, she decided to use lines she picked up from an old movie she saw last night. It is clear that once Astor Flores wrote back, Paul and Ellie would have been put into an uncomfortable situation. This means that our protagonists would need to leave their comfort zone immediately. For Paul, he was forced to reevaluate his definition of dating and his motivation for dating Astor, and would later on question his feelings towards Ellie. For Ellie, she was uncomfortable but at the same time tempted to initiate a correspondence to Astor via handwritten letters, even though the correspondence success would be credited in Paul's name. Earlier in the film, Paul was depicted as a typical dude who only cares about his pickup and eating at the local diner. He describes Astor in the most trite way a dude can think of.
Dear Astor Flores, I think you're really beautiful. Even if you were ugly, I'd want to know you, because you are smart and nice too.
It's hard to find all those things in one girl, but even if you were only two of those things, I'd be into it. But you're like all three, just to be clear.
Later on, his budding friendship with Ellie and the intellectual pen pal Astor made him question his intellectual capacity to keep up with them, and made him confused whether he deserves Astor's love. This resonated with the Oscar Wilde quote presented in the film. In love, one always starts by deceiving oneself, and ends by deceiving others. It was Ellie who deceived herself at first by being Paul's consciousness in the letters.
It's like a game. She's like challenging us, but in a good way.
Now, Paul was deceived into thinking that he isn't good enough because Ellie is more capable in understanding Astor.
She's pretty, and smart, and she's never mean, and she smells like fresh ground flour.
His seemingly shallow descriptions on why he likes Aster appeared to be nonsense when compared to Ellie's description when asked what else there is to be liked about Aster. And so, Paul engaged in reading books that Aster reads in an attempt to keep up with her, while Ellie gradually opened herself up as she was confessed with her issues regarding Aster. Maybe they were the true halves that make a whole, as the contrasting characteristics of the two paints an interesting picture. A high school jock from a loud family, and a bright, shy high school nerd. It's as if Ellie was the brain while Paul acts as the body. The mind and body, the emotion and reason, the impulse, the id and superego.
Conversation is like ping pong. I hit one, and then you... What the?
Maybe that comprises love. A good mixture of thinking and doing. Even though Ellie and Paul are two halves that make a whole, it would appear that they're only two quarters adding into one half. Because of course, the other half would be Aster. Aster is just as interesting as Ellie and Paul, and she seems to be the best of both worlds. While being a popular campus crush, she also possesses intellectual and artistic prowess, and most of all, kindness. But behind that kindness, Aster has her fair share of struggles, particularly about her family's religious background. She even associates her father, a pastor, to a Nazi. We can pretty much say that her family puts pressure on her to the point that she has to lie to her father to seize the day.
I already lied to my dad about where I'd be.
When she brought Ellie to her hiding place, they had a very interesting discussion about God. Ellie's loneliness from not believing in God may stem from the fact that churches unites people together as long as they share a common belief. That is why it totally makes sense that Ellie, despite playing the organ during masses, still feels lonely as she doesn't fully absorb the church's beliefs. And of course, her loneliness might stem from the church's view of homosexuality. Paul, also a churchgoer, when presented with Ellie's feelings towards Aster, says this.
You're going to hell.
But who is Paul to say that anyway? And what do gods know about love in a human sense? The answer, of course, was given to us earlier in the film. The half of it touches the discussion about faith, but not only in its conventional sense. It also teaches us our faith in each other affects each one of us. Ellie's faith in Aster encouraged her to take art school. Her faith in Paul's sausage taco business urged Paul to discuss changing recipes with his mother. Paul's faith in Ellie's ability to express herself enabled her to be seen and recognized by the whole campus. While Mrs. Gieselschaft, Ellie's literature professor, has faith that Ellie would succeed if she leaves Squamish to take college in Iowa. Mrs. Gieselschaft discussed No Exit in their class, a play by the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. No Exit, as also mentioned in the film, is about three people trapped in a room as they inflict hell onto each other's existence. A door was open, but nobody leaves. When Ellie was presented the opportunity to take college in Iowa, she was hesitant to leave Edwin, her father, as she had already virtually replaced him in manning the train station. In Sartre's play, it is famously quoted that hell is in other people. But in this film, all it takes is one bold stroke, a leap of faith, to not inflict hell towards others. And maybe, just maybe, the true act of love is opening the door and letting the one you love leave. Let them leave in order for them to leave. Take that one bold stroke for a chance to make a good painting great. Maybe that's what love and faith is about. To let someone take the train and chase after them, knowing that you wouldn't really catch up. But doing it just to show them that you care. You let them leave and try to follow them. Maybe that's what love is. Welp, that's all we could chip in for the flick we discussed today. If you loved this video, don't forget to click like. And if you want more film analysis, consider visiting and subscribing to our channel. We hope you enjoyed your bag of chips as we discussed your favorite flick here in Flick and Chips.